Welcome to TriloTalk. This is a podcast dedicated to topics that we think are important to the profession of medical writing. And our goal is to bring these topical issues and ideas to the forefront and spark conversations in the medical writing community. I'm Julia Forjanic Klapproth, Senior Partner at Trilogy Writing and Consulting, an Indigene company. We're picking up on the theme of medical devices again today, and I'm very pleased to have two very experienced device writers with me. The first is our very own Laura Collada, as Senior Medical Writing Manager at Trilogy, and Raquel Billiones, who is Director of Medical Writing and Lead for Medical Devices and Combination Products. So welcome, ladies. Happy to have you with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So what we want to do in this conversation is dive a bit deeper into writing specifically about drug delivery systems to highlight what medical writers should be aware of when writing about these types of devices. So, Raquel, I was thinking about this. There's this whole myriad world of devices out there. Can we start by talking about what drug delivery systems are as opposed to all of the other types of devices? What's special about these?
Sure. So first of all, just to say that my views and opinions are really solely on my own as an individual and do not represent those of my employer. And then to your question, Julia, as we know, the medical device world is very large and diverse. Think about contact lenses and facial masks to very complex machines like surgical robots. Drug delivery systems, delivery devices, as the name says, are devices aimed to deliver drugs. That's all they are intended to do. That's their main purpose, right? And the main action of the therapy really comes from the drug that is being delivered.
Right.
So that's basically the concept of drug delivery systems. There are some issues there because in many cases, because they are just there to deliver the drug, they are often forgotten or even overlooked. But think about it, you cannot really treat a patient without delivering the drug, right? So forgetting your drug delivery device is really detrimental to your program.
And many people, I think, often don't think about that aspect of it. Yes, we're giving you the drug, but who stops and thinks about the thing we're using to give you the drug, other than when you're taking a tablet?
Yeah, so again, you mentioned about the tablet. So not all drugs actually are basically administered orally. There are many drugs, especially biologics, or basically called parenteral drugs that need to be delivered parenterally, and that's where the drug delivery systems come in. And in the past, many parenteral drugs are administered in the clinic intravenously. So that's where basically drug delivery system started. However, so imagine a drug for a serious disease that requires lifetime treatment. The patient goes to the clinic to receive that IV infusion, let's call it drug IV, once a week, a standard of care. Now, that is really a burden to the patient to do that. And this was really underlined during the COVID-19 pandemic, that there is a need for better drug delivery systems that give patients better autonomy, but also minimize the burden on the healthcare system. So this is where basically more, as let's say, clever, more innovative drug delivery systems come in. So if I just may give an example of the most common drug delivery systems would be for subcutaneous would be injectors, syringes, infusion systems. These are we are most familiar with, but there are also others like inhalers, transdermal patches, and so on.
And Raquel, I was just thinking about the examples you gave. For example, if we talk about injectors, why is it that very often these kind of drug delivery systems are completely forgotten in clinical study protocols? So you see endpoints for the drugs and safety for the drug. The device part is missing. I think that's where medical writers come in. You know, we need to have our eyes wide open and bear in mind that there's a device in there, and that even if it's a well-established device or a device that has lots of clinical data that's been on the market for long, maybe there are not stringent regulatory requirements in there, but still, why would you miss the device, right? Why would you not collect data on that part of your therapy? This is something that we often see, and it's difficult to tackle sometimes.
Yeah, and yeah, I see that quite often as well. And the
Yes, well,
reason for this, if you take the drug and the delivery device, they are basically known as one single product called drug device combination product, or combination product for short.
yeah,
A combination product, basically, with the drug and the drug delivery system, we focus on the main principal action, and here the principal actor is the drug. It's treating the disease.
Yeah.
yeah.
And so everyone looks at, at the disease outcomes, the safety and the efficacy of the drug, not sometimes. And again, as you mentioned, the delivery system, how the drug get to the patient, sometimes that's forgotten, and that
How and
is.
how much,
And
right?
how much.
Because if we think about the dose and the dose that is going to be effective, then was it, all delivered or not? And
But
Exactly.
you raised an interesting point, Laura, because I hadn't really thought about this before. But surely, anytime you have a study where someone's doing a subcutaneous injection just with a normal syringe, you don't have to do special endpoints to deal with how a syringe works, right?
no, but what about the ethics? Wouldn't you collect data on that if something is to happen? I think for well-established devices, you do not need to really have those endpoints in there, but you
Rethink
would
it.
still, sorry?
Rethink it.
Exactly. You do not have to rethink the wheel. No, not at all. But I think for the safety side of things, you would, in any case, need to collect something if something happens. Maybe nothing's going to happen, and that's okay. That would be wonderful. But what if, right?
Yeah. So maybe I would like to give you an example. Yeah,
Yeah.
very, very simple. Already marketed drug that's delivered subcutaneously, and again, for patient has to go to the clinic once a week to have that IV. But it's really a burden to the patient and the healthcare system. So let's say, hey, let's reformulate this drug IV and call it, let's say, drug sub-Q, so that patient can self-administer them at home. That sounds rather simple, you think. Well, not really, because think about it. I, a drug IV uh, basically works easily for large volumes. Think about it, a drug sub-Q is limited by volume, viscosity, duration, and pain of the injection. So,
Right.
Julia, Laura, I have this question for you. How long do you think you can hold and push a handheld syringe to deliver a drug? Give me a guess.
How long?
How long? How long?
I don't.
How much does it hurt?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I'm 10 seconds. I don't know. I
Yeah.
wouldn't. I mean, you're probably not going to sit there for a minute, but maybe a minute. I don't know.
How hard do you need to push, right? Okay, I see what I see where you are driving
Yeah,
us.
exactly. And these are the things that
and those auto injectors are well-established devices.
yeah. So I'm just thinking like a normal syringe, right? That's a
Yeah.
normal standard syringe. So Julia, you made a very good guess. 10 seconds. Maximum of 10 seconds that you can, inject yourself and push. And that's only a maximum of 1 ml. The volume, 1 ml. If you go above 1 ml, you need longer
Of course.
time. You need you need the longer time. There's more pain, as Laura mentioned.
Yeah.
Therefore, that is where basically we need more innovative sub-Q delivery systems to accommodate large volumes. And Laura, you mentioned about auto injectors. There are auto injecting pens, but also large volume on body injectors.
Well, you see, you challenge us in a way, but you also helped us think about, okay, what do we need to be careful about when, for example, we write a clinical study protocol? No device is as easy as it may seem. Okay, we were just talking about an injection, which is, it's an old device, nothing new. Still, many things need to be considered. And I think medical writers can be an added value here to the team because we can, suggest advice according to our knowledge of devices in these drug delivery system trials.
Yeah.
Now, I know that if you have a device protocol, and I'm thinking here about what you were talking about, the combination situation, right? You have a drug and you have a device, and you're going to have endpoints in that protocol that are designed to understand how well the drug works and the safety of the drug. But then probably depending on the type of device, you're going to have endpoints specific to the device itself. So you may or may not have that. Like I'm guessing a syringe probably at this stage wouldn't have device relevant endpoints other than safety. I mean, you're collecting AEs. But what type of device endpoints are you going to have, and for what types of drug delivery devices within a protocol?
Yeah. So so basically, okay, again, going back to my example, you have a well-established drug IV, and you basically reformulate it to a drug sub-Q.
Yeah.
So basically, you need a bridging study with the study protocol, bridging between that IV to the sub-Q formulation, right? And in order to bridge that, you would say, are they bioequivalent? That's actually PK data that you need there. Does the device really deliver the drug as it should? It could be leaking. It could be, not being delivered properly. Especially self administration, it has to be very important that it works.
Yeah, they have to deliver all of it.
Absolutely. Does the device deliver the drug effectively and safely with no safety concerns? And that's why this is very important. You have basically endpoint for the drug, the performance. It should perform as it should. That means it should deliver. It should deliver the drug, and it should be linked to the PK data. Are they bioequivalent? And then you will see, is the exposure of the drug as a drug IV and drug sub-Q, because basically they are the same drug, but the exposure when they are delivered to the patients, are they the same? And that is where basically the medical writer can help in bridging this device endpoints and the PK endpoint. And of course, again, we shouldn't forget the safety. Yeah. So these are basically should be part of your what you call bridging study protocol in this example.
It's very, very interesting. I think the tendency is to think about drug delivery systems as two different entities, so the device and the drug. Well, we should consider it a whole storyline in a way. So the protocol needs to be that red, that fil rouge, right? That tells the whole story.
And is it
Absolutely.
common that teams will only think of the drug part and not think about the device piece? And then we as writers have to kind of say, oh, wait, what about these aspects? Is that fairly common?
There's basically because the pharma industry basically is, well, we're focused on the pharma, right? And only recently that we became aware of the device regulations and so on, and therefore in many companies the awareness of drug delivery systems are becoming important, and that is where medical writers who can speak, let's say, both languages, who can bridge the two landscapes of drugs and devices, they basically will really help the team to have this, whole picture, as
Right.
Laura said.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
And we've been talking about the protocols, which is setting it up, but I'm wondering now about when you get to the reporting stage. I was thinking about what you're saying with, the safety of it, and then we collect AEs. Would you separate, say, in the report, AEs that might be device-specific AEs? Like you're going to have, say, injection site reactions. You might have irritation around the injection site, things like that. I'm just, the typical things. Would you report those in a separate subsection in the report, or how would you handle that?
It may also depend on the device, right? And who is the end user, because you may have two different users. So someone administering the device and someone getting the device. And that could already be a differentiation between device-related events and drug-related events. So I think it depends on the device, how you need to present the data.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's how I would tackle it. I don't know, Raquel, if you agree.
Yeah, I agree, but I would like to focus on, again, back to the injectables.
Yeah.
Julia mentioned about injection site reactions, ISRs, right? You would think that these are all captured during the AE monitoring reporting, right?
Yeah.
But again, it has to be very clear in your protocol, because and again, are you considering them all AEs, or are you just monitoring the ISRs and reporting them as AEs if they are clinically significant? Because by default, injection will come with injection site reaction. You will always have a prick. You will always have some redness. You will always have a little bit of bleeding and so on.
Yeah.
So in my experience, in a protocol, you have to capture all those, but not all of those should be reported as AEs. Only when the investigator says this is clinically significant, then it goes into the AE reporting. But you still have that data of ISRs every time you inject, basically. You inject the drug.
Right. And then moving beyond the reporting, when you get to the dossiers, what are the things that writers would typically be bringing to the table that we need to be thinking about, be aware of in that context?
So again, back to the term, the drug device combination product. Now, depending on the drug, the design of the delivery system, and the limitations I mentioned before, like volume, viscosity, basically the combination product can either be integral or single entity product, or non-integral product. I will give an example so that it's clear.
Yeah.
So small volume, a pre-filled syringe, a pre-filled auto-injector, basically is an integral combination product. Now, the term integral, why? Because the drug and the device, they're fully integrated into one single entity. So these are integrated, they're single entity, and this is very common for small volumes.
So
However,
you
the other type,
basically, you go to the pharmacy, you get the syringe that has the drug in it, so it's all one thing.
it's all one.
Yeah.
One
One,
package.
yeah, so one package and ready to go. You just
Right.
Yeah.
open it, take the
Right.
cap, ready to go for injection.
An
The other,
EpiPen.
yeah, exactly. The other type, this is usually used for large volumes or for drugs with very specific characteristics, is the so-called non-integral combination products. So an example would be an injector system, which is a separate standalone device. And then the drug comes in a cartridge or a vial.
Mhm.
And then both the device and the drug in the cartridge are delivered in a box or in a package, same box. But before administration, basically the patient or the person who's administering it will insert the cartridge
Mhm.
and the vial into the injector and then start the injection.
Mhm.
And the example is there are sub-Q injectors who you can use it your hands free and you attach it to, for example, to your abdomen, and then you can walk around for 10 minutes. And then that is the sort of the type that is for large volumes. Now you may ask, what's the big deal? What's the distinction between the two? Well, the regulatory requirements, especially in the EU, are different,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Do you agree, Laura?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So the integral single entity combination products, it's simple. It just follows the medicinal regulatory pathway in the EU. It's regulated as a drug, and you just submit your ECTD for the EMA to review. Yes, you put some details there of your delivery systems in module 3, but basically it's just your CTD. Now, the other scenario I told you, the large volume non-integral combination product, they are considered are two separate products, even if they are co-packaged. The drug is regulated as a drug where you have your CTD dossier,
Yeah.
but the device is regulated as a device and you need a CE mark for that.
Okay.
So it's
And
two different sets of documentation, but they
yeah,
do need to talk to each other.
they need to be consistent, but there are two sets.
Yeah.
And again, the CTD will be submitted to EMA. It's a centralized procedure, and the technical documentation will be submitted to a notified body in the EU to get the CE mark.
Right. So they're not
two
even being
regulatories.
submitted to the same agency, to the same people who are reviewing it. It's two different groups of people reviewing these things.
Correct.
But if I'm understanding correctly, you'd basically probably have one study that you're collecting the data for both of those dossiers from, right? You'll have a study where you're using, obviously, the device and the drug, and you'll collect some data in that about the device and some data in that about the drug, and then you write separate dossiers.
That's correct.
And that's the challenge, because when you prepare that protocol, you really need to bear in mind very well what will happen afterwards. So it's like, when we deal with publications, it's like having the publication planning in mind. Well, here you need to have the regulatory pathway in mind and what will be needed. How are we going to use the data?
Right.
Otherwise, when you get to the dossier, maybe you will be missing some bits and pieces if you had not thought about them before.
Correct. And just also to emphasize, the outcomes of both should be positive in order for your product to be authorized in the EU. Even if the CHMP says positive opinion, the European Commission will need to wait for the notified body to say they also positive before they can say it's approved. So the approval will basically need positive opinion from the two regulatory bodies.
Yeah, of course.
And in your experience, is it typically the same medical writer or group of medical writers who are writing both dossiers, or do those get written by different teams?
It depends on the company, right?
Mhm.
Ideally, it would be one writer who
Right.
knows both
That's what
sides,
I'm
right?
thinking.
But sometimes you don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
So yeah. So in the ideal world, yes, should be at least one writer who's basically coordinating the two sides. Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is that when you're writing for these drug delivery systems, the medical writer really frequently plays an important role in helping the teams understand the specific requirements for tailoring those regulatory documents to the needs of the devices. And you have to be thinking about it right from the beginning. And we really can help those teams make sure that they're not going to be missing something later on. Keep them not just focused on the drugs, but also on the devices.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, ladies. This has been a really informative session, and I appreciate both of you taking the time to dive into this topic with me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to TriloTalk today. If you have feedback you'd like to share, or if you have any ideas for future topics you'd like us to cover, particularly something you think the community should be talking about, we would love to hear it. We would like this to be an ongoing conversation with medical writers at large, and you can send us your comments on our Twitter feed or our LinkedIn page. Just a reminder, you can find all our episodes of TriloTalk podcast on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, Spotify, and trilogywriting.com/TriloTalk. Have a great rest of your day.